Oh, gotta pause my music. There you go. All right. Howdy.
Hey, how's it going?
Great. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
I gotta finish getting my stuff prepped on the screen here real quick. And it would help if I shared my screen too. Close all the junk I don't need. Good. Cool. All right. Share my screen. Cool. Make sure I'm in my right folder. Workshops. All right. We'll give this another minute or two before we start up so that people can come in and not get too far behind right off the bat. That's better. Cool. All right. Well, let's go ahead and get started. So today we're going to be talking about Angular routing. Right? Routing is a fun part of Angular that allows us to have many components on our application and navigate between them, kind of like a real web page would do. Right? We can go between sections, we can make links, we can load content. It's wicked cool and wicked fun. And it's pretty easy to build too. So I'm going to start off kind of how I've been starting off every video so far, with making sure that I have the Angular CLI installed. I can do that from my command line by typing in ng:\version. That will tell me which version of the Angular CLI I have installed. I need the Angular CLI in order to generate Angular components or even the Angular application itself. I have version 7.0.1. Version 7 is relatively new-ish. You may or may not have version 6 or 7. Depends on when you've installed or if you've updated it. There are some minor differences between 6 and 7. One of them, actually most notable, is pretty relevant to this topic, and I will show that as well. Kind of maybe give some incentive to upgrade. So let's make an application. I'm going to say ng:new. That's my command to make a new Angular application, ng:new. And to give my application a name, I'm going to call this router, because I think that sounds funny. It's going to be our router. I'm going to use an option on here called /skip tests. This one's newer to CLI 7. This allows me to skip generating the .spec.ts files. They kind of clutter the project a little bit. That's all it does. So Angular CLI 7 will ask me if I want to add Angular routing. Right? For this example, we're going to start off by making one from scratch. So I'm going to tell it no. And what style sheet format do I want? I want CSS. If I had told that option yes, it will make a routing file for me, which is pretty cool. Right? Typically, I want to say in the olden days, right, we have to make this file manually. But it's not that hard to make. Once you make it a couple, 2, 5, 18, 20 dozen times, you kind of get used to it. All right, this will take a minute to generate. While it's doing that, I want to go ahead and make sure I have everything I need so far. I have my main core application files, my app module TS, and my app component. I am going to be adding Bootstrap into this project, so I will be touching the styles.css file. But outside of the app folder, that's generally the only file that I need to mess with. Almost. Cool. So I want to change directory into my folder that I've made. I want to make sure I'm in my folder, because if I run my Angular commands anywhere else, like if in my core, I'm not in the correct folder and I run any of the Angular commands to generate anything, it'll tell me it has failed. I have to be in my Angular project that I made. Typically, whatever ng new command I made, it'll make that folder for me, and is going to need to look for the angular.json file in order to run. Even if I try to serve this, I try to open my application, it'll say, no, can't find it. So just make sure we're in the appropriate folder. I can serve this and open it up. This will take a second and build, and then it will pop open inside of I already used my other one's already running. I have my demo example on my other monitor I'm working from. It should pop up in just a tick. Cool. It will build, which takes just a second or two. The first time it takes longer than times after that. Bam! New browser window, default Angular application. Right. That means I am up and running. My preference is to keep this one terminal window running my application and open up another one to generate all of my commands inside of it. Make sure I'm in the right folder as well. I always want to make sure I'm in the right folder when I'm making these parts. So what I want to do, I'm going to start off by making a bunch of components. I'm going to have several pages to my application. I'm going to ng generate component. This tells the Angular CLI to generate a component. I'm going to give the component a name. And make a home component. This is going to be my default home landing page. And I can see that inside of the SRC app, I have a new home folder with home component CSS, HTML, and TS. Right, generated component. I'm going to do this several more times. And if I spell generate right. ng generate component, I'm going to make an about component. Right. So far at least this is pretty standard Angular. Make a project and we're making several components. Home about ng generate component shop. I'm going to make a shop component. Home about shop, maybe a contact. Contact component. I'm going to leave it at those 4 components. I have about, contact, home, and shop. Right? So the next thing I need to do is I need to make my router. A router in Angular is a module. So if anybody saw my previous workshop, we can make modules pretty easy. We can say ng generate module. I'm going to give it a name. I'm going to call it app-routing. I'm going to give it a flag for --flat. This will keep it in the root directory and not make a subfolder for it. I'm going to use an option --module equals app. This will wire up my new module into my existing app module TS. And I can see it do that in just a second. Cool. It made my file and it updated the app module TS for me. I can see my app routing.module TS file here. And I can see that in my main app module TS, it has updated reference in there. Right? So this app routing.module.ts is a default Angular module. I actually need to go in here and change a couple things. First thing I'm going to change is I need to get rid of this second line. For right now, I'm just going to comment it. And that as well kind of messes with this common module reference, so I'm going to get rid of that one. I save this file. My formatter kind of makes it a little bit cleaner. All right, so I kind of gutted all the extra stuff that comes inside here. First thing I need to do is I need to bring in Angular references to turn this into an actual router. So I'm going to import two things. First thing is something called routes, spelled right, and router module. Bring that in from @angular/router. So now I need to make these two things. Right? First thing to do is I need to make routes. So I'm going to say const routes, the type of routes with a capital R, equals an array. This is going to be an array of routes that my application knows about. A route is going to be an individual path through my application, and this array is going to be the culmination of all of them. This is kind of like my application switchboard. It's going to tell me where my page needs to go. And down in my imports array, I need to add router module dot for root routes. This line pretty much shoves my route array higher up to the application. I'm just saying, hey, use this for routing. I need to get rid of the declarations array and an exports, and I export router module. Exporting the router module allows the rest of my application to use it. So we are kind of gutting and scrapping kind of a default module and rebuilding it as a router. To me, it's always seemed like this should be something that the Angular system should know how to do and build for me. It's something that in the latest version it does know how to build for you. But any other versions besides the latest, you need to manually make this file. For me, typically, I will make this file once and make sure I have a project loaded up in GitHub somewhere so I can reference this file and just kind of copy and paste the shell of it every time. That way I don't have to rewrite the whole thing from scratch every time. It's not a bad idea sometimes too. Kind of get used to the muscle memory of typing out this structure. Routes. What is routes going to have? I'm going to start out with some simple things inside of here. This is an array of route objects, right? My routes have several properties, a path and a component of the two that I'm worrying about, as well as one called path match. So my first route is always going to be my default route. What happens when somebody lands on my application and the path is nothing? In this instance, it would just be localhost :4200. That's my application. Right? There's no subpages after that. They've landed on my home page. I'm going to say when the path is nothing, redirect to /home. Redirect to my home component. I'm going to use another parameter called path match equal to full. Wow. Gotta look at that for a good 2 seconds. Path match full. This path match full will make sure that this only matches when there is exactly nothing after the address. Any other pages, it won't fall into this item. So it's going to kind of check these one by one. There's a chance that nothing could match a route that has more content inside of it. I'm going to add a second route onto here. Cool, that broke that apart. That's back where I was. My second path is going to be in my home path. Home. Right? My home path is going to load my home component. And as I type this, there's a couple ways to import this. I could manually import it. I could say import home component from, it's going to be ./home/home.component. VS Code's navigation kind of tries to help me with this. Right? I can even kind of try to navigate through the drop-downs. Yeah. Home component. Cool. I'm going to add one more route real quick, just so I have some sort of difference. Next one I made was my about. I'll load the component for about component. Okay. This time I'm going to use this little light bulb to import it for me. Cool. Application now has 3 routes. I have the main landing page of my application. I have my home route, and I have my about route. And the default path routes to my home component. Awesome. So I'm going to go to my main app component HTML. I'm going to gut it. So what I want to do is I want to add a link. I'm going to say a router link equals / home. Home. Do a line break. Say a router link equals / about next about. Already forgotten the third one. Just 2. Home and about. Ruby. What this is going to do on my page, and I'll show it here, I have a home link and I have an about link. I can also see that even though I'm not changing any content, my address does change. If I go to the default root of my application, it redirects to /home. That's exactly what I wanted it to do. That's what my routes told it to do. And the path is nothing, redirect to /home. /home matches this path. If I click on about, the path goes to /about. So now all I need to do is figure out how to get my page to load these actual components. Like where do these come from? How do I display these? Right? The display part comes out as a component called router outlet. Wherever I put this router outlet is where the content on my page is going to go. If I go back to my page, I can see that when I click on home, it says Homeworks. When I click on About, it says About Works. I can switch between my components. And whichever one I click on is the component it matches and shows into the router outlet. Right? As complicated as it sounds, the Angular routing system, all it does is it matches part of the URL to whatever component needs to be loaded in the router outlet. It's kind of a couple steps and a little bit of work to get to this point, but once it's set up, it's incredibly easy to configure and expand an application. Right. So we have this page. This doesn't look too appealing. Right. This isn't kind of like what pages look like. Let's make this look more like a normal web page. We can kind of see what it would really look like. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to generate a new component. Make a header. Make a header component. This is just going to live at the top of my page. Right. That means I'm going to take away these links. I'm going to call my app header component. My page should now just say header works and about works, whatever page I land on. If I manually change my address, it'll say header works and about works. That router outlet still works without any problems. I'm going to go into my header component HTML and gut it out. This is going to turn into a navbar stretching across the top of my page. Before I need a navbar, though, I need some sort of styling. So I'm going to install Bootstrap. I'm going to do that by saying npm install Bootstrap at 3.3.7. So that's the version I want to install. Bootstrap 3.3.7. We'll install Bootstrap 3.3.7 on my system for my application. While that's installing, like I said, I'm going to go back down to the styles.css file. That file lives outside of the app folder. That means it's going to have a core part of the infrastructure. I'm going to add a line on here for @import. Import. I'm going to import the Bootstrap CSS file into my system. I can do that by saying @import and then a tilde, bootstrap /dist/css/bootstrap.min.css. As soon as I do that, the font on my page should change. And I know that the Bootstrap system is kicked in. So installing Bootstrap is just 2 steps. Run the npm install command, add the import into style CSS. Right, pretty straightforward. Why can't I close that tab? Close them in the other tab so I can close that one. All right. So header component HTML. I want a navbar, right? So I'm going to make a div class equal to navbar, navbar dash default. Inside of here, there's going to be a div with class equal to container fluid. Container dash fluid. Right. Inside here, I'm going to have a div with a class equal to navbar header. Call this router. This should pop up a gray box across the top of my page with the poorly styled word router across the top. Right. Generally, too, with Bootstrap, I'm generally going to try to Google what the structure is going to look like. Right. Off the top of my head, I'd be lying to you if I told you I wrote this out of memory. Generally, I have to use some of my own examples or some references. That's not what I wanted. Components. So typically, I'll go to their documentation, which is pretty good, and find the navbar that closest matches what I want to have happen. Links, ooh, something like that. Static, inverted, breadcrumbs. Text buttons, default. That's got a lot of stuff on it. But I want an icon, and I do want links like that. So I can see there is navbar default, container fluid, there's header, right? And here's some links too. I'm going to try to combine some of these things. But I can kind of take a boilerplate kind of navbar and start building from it. So I need to make my icon a little bit better. Instead of router, this is going to be a div. Class equal to navbar brand. And oh, I got rid of my router. That's going to look a little bit nicer. Router. I'm going to make some links after that. So after my header, which is this guy. Yeah. Make it UL. Class equal to navbar nav. I've typed the word navbar way too many times today. It doesn't even look like a word anymore. Make a list item. Class equal to nav item. Inside of here, I get an A. Class equal to nav link. It's going to say home. My nav link is going to have a router link to / I'm just going to do home. My home link. Home. And that goes to my home page and it says home works. Basically going to copy this guy and make one for about. Oh. On my previous app component HTML, I just had 2 links. In this instance, I'm making a much richer navbar. Home and about. And as long as I have those router links on my anchor tags, they work. Make this a little bit snazzier though. I'm going to add something called a router link active. This is going to do is if this path is matched, it's going to throw an active class on here. This means that whatever tab I have is going to be the one that keeps highlighting. I know what page I'm on. Right? The Angular routing system gives me some of that functionality by default. Just kind of neat. Router link active. I can make links for my other pages. I did about, I did contact and shop, right? Yeah. Contact. Shop. And this guy, contact. I don't have those routes yet. But I want to see what happens if I don't have those yet. What does it do? If I click on those, well, nothing happens. That doesn't go anywhere. My router doesn't know what those router links are, so it will ignore those ones. Right? It won't let me make a link to somewhere that doesn't exist yet, which is pretty neat. Right? So let's make those links. Let's make those addresses. I'm going to hop back in my app routing module TS. And basically, I just need to add some more paths. Another path, contact. Loads the component, contact component. Have another path for shop. Loads the component, shop component. As soon as I add those routes, my navigation will work. I can see all these sections pop up. Right? One of the cool parts is that since this router outlet just outputs the content wherever I put the router outlet, I can make the second part of my page a little bit nicer. I'm going to add a div with the class of Jumbotron. Inside of there is going to be a div with the class of Container. This kind of what would look like the middle of a page. I'm going to put my router outlet inside of there. This ends up looking like this guy. Now I have 4 links and 4 pages on my application. Right? I could bookmark these and go to that page if I wanted to. It would load up this page directly. So 4 pages. 4 components, 4 links, and it works pretty good. Works pretty cool, right? Kind of top to bottom, that's a basic router. We're going to kind of enhance this a little bit, then we're going to see the faster way to make a router. Right, but this is kind of the manual long way to make one. approuting.module.ts. Right, the magic of it is this routes and this import and export section. Right. I could potentially run this in my main app module TS, but it kind of pollutes and combines a lot of things. This app module TS generally tends to get bigger as my application goes. So I don't want to make it unnaturally bigger. That means the perfect place for a separate module is my routing. App routing module TS. Cool. So now we're going to learn a fun trick. Right? Because navigating between pages is cool, but what's cooler are parameters. Right? Parameters are the new hotness. Navigation is the old hotness. I don't know. So what I want to do is I want to have, because I mean, We can see addresses sometimes of sites that have things like shop, like /5 or something. Right? There's all sorts of parameters and stuff in addresses nowadays. So I'm going to make that setup. On my path here, I can put kind of a wildcard placeholder for another property in that path, :ID. Right? It's going to end up giving me an ID parameter of whatever value I put there. So if I do shop/5, I get the number 5. Maybe I should load up product number 5. Shop/4, I'll get the number 4. Maybe I should load up product number 4. First half of that is easy, right? Shop/SOMEID. So if I go to shop/5, I get shopworks, but I don't have that number yet. Right? This address is valid. It's working. It'll take any number I put after that shop address. The second part of that equation is actually over in the shop component. Right? After the route sends to there, it's up to my component to reach into the address and grab that parameter if it wants it. It only takes a couple lines of code in here. This is kind of a two-part system, a route and a component. To use this, I'm going to import something called activated route. It's going to come from @Angular/router. The same place I got all of my routing stuff, right? Angular/router. This is another component of Angular router. Just like wiring up a service, I'm going to inject in here this activated route. And say private route is an activated route. An activated route is basically the route that activated. Well, I was going to say it's the route that's been activated, right? But it's the specific path route that's been matched. Right? That's my activated route. So I pass that in there. I'm going to put my next piece of code inside of the ng on init. I'm not going to put it inside of the constructor. I put it inside the ng on init because after my component has been constructed and put on the page, then I want to pull data out. If I put this inside of the constructor, it runs too early and won't do anything. So if you're building this kind of thing and it's just not working, it might be because your code is maybe in the constructor instead of the ng on init. Right? Cool. So I'm going to say this dot route. Call it router. Call it route. This dot route. I'm thinking about the route. Dot parameters. Dot subscribe. Right? This uses the same kind of observable system that we kind of work with services. This is going to be a function. I'm going to take a parameter called params. I'm going to need to put something somewhere. Say this dot ID equals params. ID. Give me the ID parameter. Right? This guy doesn't exist yet, so I'm going to make it real quick. Say ID is a number. Save. Then in my shop component HTML, after my paragraph, I'm going to say ID. Give me that ID back out. Display the ID that I just nabbed from the address. That actually works pretty quickly. Whatever number I put up here, it's going to say shopworks 7. Shopworks 1. Shopworks Apple. And that works too. Right? It's able to kind of violate some of those data types. But in general, I could use it for numbers. Right? That gives me interesting things to do. Right? Maybe in my header, I wanted a link for shop 1, which was shop/1. Make a link for shop 2, which is shop/2. And each of those will go to their appropriate shop works in the number 1. Shop works number 2. Right? I can kind of see the beginnings of maybe I could have a listing of products to buy. And this would go to the details of that product. Right? Click on number 1, have the product's ID. Maybe I can construct a link to it and send it to it. And the page would have that ID and look it up somewhere. Right? Because right here I have a property to work with. Like, hey, here's information about ID number 5. Right? Maybe I'm viewing details about something. There's all sorts of applications for this. Right? I want to load one of 2 options on a page or something. It's pretty cool. It's pretty straightforward. After I build out this routing system, there's not that much work on top of it to start sending parameters and data through. It's kind of a quick, easy way to pass a simple parameter down into a component. Right? That's pretty neat. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to trash this terminal. I'm going to stop this guy from running. And I'm going to make another project real quick. I'm going to make this a different way. Okay. I'm going to use this the newer way. So if I say ng new, I'm going to make router -new. Keep my skip tests option. Okay. cd dot. And my command, ng new. Why am I having so many problems today? ng new router. Doesn't make it. Right. New Angular CLI starts out by saying, hey, would you like to add Angular routing? Why, yes. Yes, I would. Let's select use CSS. What this is going to do then is this will make app routing module TS. Yay! Everything we just worked so hard to make, it now knows how to make by default, which is pretty cool, right? It took a lot of developers, a lot of years of yelling for them to finally add this in here. It was such a common thing that it's kind of weird not to have it, but now it's there. Like I said, though, that's only available in the Angular CLI 7. So if you're on an older version, you can upgrade. There are a couple other differences, though, which is why we showed how to manually make this file first. Because sometimes upgrading has some of its pros and cons. Maybe what you're used to doing might not work anymore. Right? Or things have been replaced or changed. If all you're getting out of it is that it's manually or automatically making a file you have to do manually before, that's not too bad. Cool. Close this file and reopen it. No. Why does that not have that reference? I can find it. cd router new. Serve -- open. Build and serve my application. It should pop up without any problems or difficulties. And just a second. All right, there's my new project. Cool, so it built out that shim of the Angular router for me. This is pretty much the exact code that we wrote before. In fact, if I open up that other one, make sure I have these files open. Okay. Here's my first one. I go into my new project. Here's my new one. Right? They both have this ng model with imports and exports. Ng model, imports, exports. They both have this const routes equals. Const routes equals. They both have an import for routes and router module. There's a routes and router module. That's pretty cool. But it shows too that kind of making this default file doesn't take too much work. There's only a couple pieces you need to start with. It's pretty handy. All right, that's kind of the nuts and bolts of the Angular router. We kind of threw some bells and whistles on it, passing a parameter through. Some of the parts that went real quick was this router link active. Right? This is a true-false condition for if the current route matches this link. If the condition is true, it will throw an active class on the link. Right? Bootstrap and many other systems know what to do with an active class. They highlight the current thing you're working with. This makes our navigation so that it stays with what link we clicked on. The other important piece with that link is the router link parameter. The router link parameter tells it what part of the address to use, as well as make sure that that is part of our router. If this link is not part of our router, then it won't do anything. Right. Other than that, this is 99% Bootstrap on this page. Right. The only two Angular pieces are these two parameters, router link active and router link. Right. Sorry, these two attributes. Everything else is just Bootstrap right there. Same thing with our main app component, HTML. I loaded my component from my header, and I use this router outlet tag that shows where the output of that router will display. Other than that, just some styling around it. And it works pretty good. And I can play around with that pretty easily too. I can click around the different links. I can try to making links that have multiple parameters, right? Kind of using the same structure. So the Angular router is pretty fun. Right? And you can set it up without even having content in your components yet. Right? You can kind of build out all of that first and then start building out your pages. Kind of put some shells and some skeleton. We're building out kind of framework on top of the Angular framework now, which gets pretty fun. All right, I've been talking at this box for like 43 minutes or so, maybe 40, 41. Does anybody have any questions, comments, concerns? Anything they want clarified a little bit? Maybe? Anybody? Feel free to unmute or ask any questions. If you don't have any questions, I will be throwing this. Actually, I'll do that right now because I will delete that one project first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to throw this project up on GitHub real quick. And I will show how that is done because this is my jam. I'm going to go to my GitHub page, my repositories page. I'm going to make a new repository. We call this router. Create repository. Creating a repository for. I want to go ahead and copy this address. It gives me an address to this repository. I want to copy. Keep waiting. I shouldn't read that. Yeah, it's still deleting that. We'll give this a second. We might need to stop and restart this. All right. Oops. Kill it, reopen it. Cool. And reopen that. Awesome. Am I in my folder still? Oh, open recent. Workshops. All right, router. I want to link this up to my GitHub, right? This is already a Git project. An Angular project by default is a Git project. I can verify that by looking at the folder it made, and I can see a .git folder. Right? Also, if I am in any project, I can say git status. If it gives me anything, it's like, hey, yeah, there's a Git project there. Right? So what I want to do, I want to make sure all of my files are checked in. Git add. I can see that number 21 flash real quick. Say git commit -m. I'm going to commit this with a message. Initial commit from workshop. Let's see that number 21 go away. It went away. I need to link this up to my GitHub page. To do that, I'm going to use the command git remote. Add origin. Paste that address in. Git remote. Add origin. That's going to look like it's done absolutely nothing, which is always a bummer. If I type in git remote -v, that should spit me back out that address I put in. If it doesn't, then it didn't link correctly. Final command, git push -u origin master. This will take all of my code and upload it. Coincident at the same time. I can also see that a lot of these commands are sitting right here in front of me on this GitHub page. It kind of tells me what to do, which is pretty neat. But if I refresh the page, I will see that, hey, here's all of this code. Right? So if anybody wants this code as an example, it is on my GitHub page, github.com/Ammon King/Router. Router project we just made. It's all right there, including, for good reference to, this app router module TS. It's right here. Good template to have. All right. So we made a couple routers, we played around with them, passed some parameters, did some styling, and shoved it all into GitHub, which is kind of a good practice to do. Make projects and store your code. Make your own reference examples. And make your own documentation as you go. Anytime you learn something new, put it in a project, throw it in a GitHub repository. That way you'll never lose it. All right. So then let's wrap up then. My next workshop. What is my next workshop? What is my next workshop? Look at the list of workshops here. There we go. My next workshop tomorrow. So today was routing. Tomorrow's Halloween, 31st. We're going to make a little Halloween project. Not quite sure what it's going to be yet. Maybe we'll try to do like a Halloween theme or something, or customize it and do some cool things. Right. I made a candy manager the other day for some components and services stuff. Maybe we'll take that and enhance it a little bit. But cool. Tomorrow, 2 p.m., Halloween project. And I'll hope to see everybody there. In the meantime, have a great day and code happily. Oh, wait, I have chat. Cool, I actually have a chat message. I didn't even think about looking at that. 245. Knowing about routing, I just want to make sure that it is routing. Routing was just the funny name I gave for it. Routing could help us with our final. Yes, I think the final. Actually, let me pull it up. I'm not going to pull it up in front of you guys, but I want to double check. I'm fairly confident this will help you a lot with the final project. I think the final project is some sort of a task list, if I can remember off the top of my head. Let me double check. feel like I should have this final project like burned into my memory. Yeah, there is actually a very specific part of the final project to use a parameter in a URL to load an item, right, and navigate between some specific pages. So this will definitely help with the Angular final project, right? Some of these specific parts we built will be kind of a nice shell of that project, actually. So yeah, very beneficial. So for anybody working on the Angular final project and you're stuck on some of the parts for passing parameters around, check out this video. Cool. All right. In the meantime then, it's probably popping up on my screen. I'm getting messages like crazy. So I'm going to close down this workshop. And if anybody has any further questions, hit me up, let me know. I'll talk about it some more. Everybody have a safe evening. Okay, what if I press the button?